Was I raped, assaulted? Your feelings about the situation are valid. Something happened, and in turn, you feel the way you do, as you're currently unsure on whether or not you were taken advantage of. What's important now is properly acknowledging your feelings. You're not silly for reflection on your experience. If you currently have someone you can go to for support, I'd hope that's a route you're willing to go down. You can also seek more professional help, which would be preferred. In your description of the aftermath, his behavior in allowing ridicule and divulging such information is unsavory. If clarification is important to you, please seek it when you are comfortable in doing so. What's your end goal here? If this is still bothering you, you should probably talk to a counselor about it. Whether or not what happened is technically rape or not doesn't really matter. How you feel about it and how it's still impacting your life does. But you can get help with that. I'm leaning towards no. This does not mean you weren't. I'm just going off the details you provided. There has been a lot of debate on where the line is drawn for sex after drinking. And it ultimately boils down to your personal limit. You were obviously way over your limit. Nothing wrong with that. Which would normally make me say you were, due to being too drunk to consent. However, you also stated that the drinks were strong and he had two as well. He might have had enough to have motor function and remember participating. But his body might have been going with the flow due to him being drunk as well. Meaning he technically couldn't consent either. 100% personal opinion here. Think he was also hammered since he decided to have sex after getting thrown up on. I don't know anyone who is willing to do that. I'm sure there is a kink for it, though. This would make both parties unable to consent. Meaning it wasn't a rape but a moment of drunken stupor, aka a mistake. With all of that being said, I am literally a random person on the internet. And if you felt you were truly raped, then seek counseling to assist with your recovery. I know how it is to lose that ability to connect and how you never truly get it back. I don't know what happened, but he is a terrible friend for telling on you like that. Just want to say I appreciate all perspectives, and thank you all for keeping them respectful. Sounds like you were both hammered. Doesn't sound like Saw, but the guy is a total asshole for telling everyone about it. I personally wouldn't talk to him anymore. I mean, if he was sober enough to help you wash puke out of your hair. Was he sober enough to know better? He sucks either way. Spread the word to the flock that if you're vulnerable around this person, everyone will hear about it and you will be humiliated. No, consensual drunk sex isn't rape. Having sex with some after they vomited all over is just gross. Whether it was consensual or not still says a lot about his character. You wrote that you were intoxicated enough to vomit multiple times. This means you were too drunk to consent to sex. Regardless of who initiates it. You wrote that he was sober enough to drive and later called him only kind of tipsy. We can infer that he was significantly more sober than you were at this time. Since he was helping you with the vomit cleanup, he was clearly aware of your intoxication level. This sounds to me like a textbook case of a person taking advantage of someone else who was too intoxicated to consent. If it is still impacting your life a long time later, and it sounds like it is, I would recommend you seek professional counseling to discuss it with someone qualified to help you with it. You're not going to get that from a Reddit post. You don't need to answer any of my questions. But I'd be curious as to why you never hung out with this person again. Did they ever communicate with you about the sudden lack of time spent together? Since it sounds like you were hanging out a lot prior to this. Did they try to hang out as friends again at any point after this? Did they try to hook up with you again after this? These answers would tell us a lot about what this person wanted out of their friendship with you. and whether or not that friendship was genuine or if they viewed it as a gateway to sex. Why have you never hung out again? It seems to me that says a lot. This guy was your go-to friend for a very long time. Then you have sex. He tells all his friends and you never see him again. His choice? Your choice? If he was sober enough to drive and you were drunk enough to throw up, I think you know the answer. Whether you initiated or not doesn't absolve him of the awareness that you were not sober enough to consent. What bothers me most is that he likely told everyone what happened so you couldn't accuse him of assault. He knew he did you wrong. He has not shown up since. Doesn't that tell you something? Stand up for yourself. You don't have to make a police report to do that. You can just admit to yourself, and maybe your friend, and perhaps even the mutual friend group, that the sex was not consensual. You were barely conscious. Don't play along. If he was sober enough to drive you home and you were throwing up and sloppy, then he should not have had sex with you. You couldn't consent and he was apparently sober enough to operate a vehicle, so he should have realized your inability to properly consent. I'm sorry, Op. In Australia, and many other nations with affirmative consent laws, this would be legally considered rape. If you feel distressed about what happened, and feel you can no longer trust this person, you should end the friendship, and perhaps speak to a therapist if you are struggling to deal with it. I've never understood why people come online to ask about whether or not a crime has been committed, and then just believe the answers. None of the answers here sound like legal opinions. Nobody has asked what legal jurisdiction Op is living in. Nobody is explaining the legal test for rape based on statute or case law. There is just a bunch of wild answers based on what? Internet lore as to what constitutes rape? Rape is a crime. There is criteria. That criteria changes based on the legislation in the place you live. Don't ask Reddit. Ask a lawyer or the police. Him telling others is absolutely a dick move. It sounds like it was not rape, but you feel what you feel. Whether there's good reason for it or not, you feel it. If we use your friend's barometer, you raped him, too. If you didn't have the ability to consent and that was obvious, which sounds like it was, then he should have been a good friend. Put you to bed, and not taken advantage of the situation. Instead he took advantage of the situation. Hopefully you've ditched this jackass as a friend. As to your technical question, if you didn't have the ability to consent, it's non-consensual sex, which is sexual assault. Sounds like kids growing up to me. See, I don't think this was rape, Saw, as much as it was a bad decision on both of your parts. Having never communicated with him, and this being a very long time ago, doesn't help or add any needed clarity to make an actual judgment. According to today's societal standards, this would be a mutually non-consensual event. We're going off your memory as to how sober, aware your friend was. And even then, tons of men, especially in their 20s, downplay the effect of how much they chose to drink is affecting them. According to early 90s standards, in the no means no heyday, this was just regular old drunk sex. If there was no protest from you, consent was implied by both parties. And while possibly embarrassing or regrettable the following day, no rape occurred. It was a coming-of-age, learning experience that way too many people have had. Just being objective here. But the bartender's serving you 2 times as much as your male friend is a cop-out. You're an adult. You ordered adult beverages and you consumed them without an alternate contingency in place. That's on you. Your friend is no more wrong for driving after consuming alcohol than you are for going back to his place after you've had too much to drink.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. TooAfraidToAsk is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.